no, it's not a Tanzanian problem. It's around the world. And we are like, oh my God, so it's a global problem. So what inspired us to write the book is the hunger to feed people with a knowledge that they can still love themselves in no matter what kind of skin color they are in.
When you are a child at their age, especially in Tanzania, and a female at that, you have heard constantly that you have to be play low. Don't push beyond the boundaries. Do not go across the limits. Do not talk too much.
Let me tell you what I know for sure. You are enough. You are worthy. You are already powerful. We just haven't stepped fully into it yet. Let this story be your spark.
You have begun that journey by saying, I actually know that this is important and I want to actually influence and impact in a positive way. I can't not do this anymore.
This is Let's Pay Attention, Hacking Consciousness. I'm Cathy Dimarchos. Let's explore what it means to lead, live, and listen with intention.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to Let's Pay Attention, Hacking Consciousness. Do you know, today is, I'm going to say, an incredible day. One that when I actually think about the journey that these two young ladies that I'm about to introduce you to have been on, it actually makes my heart skip, but more importantly, it brings tears of joy. Sometimes actually meet people in your life, and it doesn't really matter what age they are. But when you meet them, you know that they're definitely here to do something great in the world. That's who you're about to meet. But before I introduce you to them, you know, there are others that actually surround them that are pillars in community. And that's somebody else that you're about to meet. Now, Vivian has actually been somebody that, you know, whenever I actually step into a room or I see her across the playground, this is what happens. I have just pure joy and love because that's what she exudes. And so when I think about how is it that these two young girls have actually had the journey that they had, it's because without a doubt it's been with pillars that actually surround them. Now, of course, there are others that actually have been part of their journey, but for this particular episode, we're focusing on one part of their actual world, and that is their journey in actually becoming authors. So let me introduce you to Theresia and Irene with their actual, I'm going to say, knight in shining armor of Miss Vivian. Hello, ladies.
Hi, Cathy. Hello.
Now, I guess, you know, you just heard me actually share my actual experience of you. And I don't know that that would be something that you would often actually stop and think about. Girls, when I genuinely look at you, and I suspect that others do too, they see something very different, you know, of who you are rather than who you see yourself. Is that something that you think about?
Yes, sure.
And what does that do for you when you think about that?
Sometimes it can be in the positive side, sometimes in the negative side. But on my side, I take them all.
Does it scare you?
Yeah. There are some words that makes me feel like lonely, scared. But when I take them all in the positive side, I just cheer myself up. And like that's all.
And what about for you, Theresia? Because you're very reflective.
I feel great when people view us on a positive side because I feel like it's our duty to educate the world, and I feel honored to have a chance to create something that can create a change to the world, to Africa, to Tanzania, and everyone.
That's beautiful. Vivian, if I can actually just ask you to maybe reflect on how you have experienced both Irene and Theresia, because you've probably seen them, you know, more than perhaps any other teacher.
first time I saw them, they were emceeing. They were leading an event. And they were still really, really young girls. And I just remember, I think one of them was doing English and another one was translating in Swahili. And I just remember saying, who are these girls? I want to see them now. And they were at least 2 more years away from when they would need to talk to me, right? And then when I reached out to them, I said, I want to get to know you. They didn't waste a day. They came into my office jumping and leaping, and they're like, Miss Viv, thank you for noticing. Just I was like, of course, because you are amazing. And I don't think they actually understand how great their personalities are, how influential they could be in this country, in the continent. From the time I saw them, from the first meeting we had, I knew I wasn't talking to normal girls. And every day I connect to them, I am convinced of that.
Yeah, I think you actually raised something that's so important. And I think it sort of leads into, the way that this book has actually been written, but also actually the messaging in the book. So I'm just going to actually show everyone here. This book is actually called Uzuri, Loving Yourself Inside and Out. And I'm going to get the girls to actually share a little bit more, about their journey, on this book. Even when I first heard Theresia actually on the bus as I was doing a home visit, this is probably now 2.5 years ago, just listening to the conviction that she had, not perhaps quite understanding the magnitude of what she was actually aware of and the impact that it could make. And so, Vivian, to your point, I think what you recognized several years ago is what I actually recognized, some 2 years ago. And I think for every person who actually picks up one of these books will actually be wanting for more, because the insight, the wisdom, the inner knowing that's actually shared, and even though it's a novel that's actually, it is fictional, the actual messaging is real. So I'm going to actually ask you, when you actually put the concept of Uzuri together, what were you thinking?
So we began our passion of writing books back in primary. So we could sit on the bench and write books on our way to school and from school to home. And we just were doing it for fun. So we could write on papers and the math would shape. So we had a very bad writing by then. And I remember the first book we tried to write was called Next to My Mommy. So the papers got lost, though we still have the story in our head. Then I remember in Form 3, we came with this idea of we were living around some people, some of them were fellow students who were questioning about their beauty. So one day we were supposed to have a TV program, then we didn't have it because I remember something happened, then we couldn't have the TV program. So before sleeping, I and Irene met, and I was like, Irene, I had a dream we are writing a book about people questioning about their beauty. And Irene told me, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's begin writing. So that night we did our first draft. And from there on, we began meeting after prep times and writing the book. So we wrote. We never knew it would never be a book. We thought it's going to end up like the way the first Next to My Mommy ended up, until when we met. So we were moving around and asking about publishing, how is it publishing a book here in Tanzania? And the answers were really discouraging. People will tell you it's really difficult to publish a book, especially when you are very young and unknown. So we didn't have the confidence that it's one day going to be a book, until when we met Miss Vivian and Mr. Musa, and they started mentoring us. I remember that night, our whole story could fit in 4 papers. Only 4 papers. Yeah. And after 1 week, the papers were lost. That's the truth. So we still had the story in our heads, and someone told us, like, what if you try talking to Miss Vivian? She could listen to you, and yeah. So I told Theresia maybe we can go book an appointment with Miss Vivian, and it was very, very hard going to her office because we were on the secondary side and we were not allowed to come on the primary side. So we had to follow our academic teacher, telling him that we really wish to go and see Miss Viv and we really wish to talk to her. So because by that time we were doing podcasting, it was easy for our academic teacher to allow us. And that's when we meet Miss Vivian, telling her about our story. Yeah.
So, Viv, you now have 2 young girls who are knocking at your door, enthusiastic as anything. So what happens for you?
Oh, thank you, Cathy. Yes, I remember that day like it was yesterday. And remember, I had already seen them on the stage. So I knew these were brilliant young girls. But as it was with every student that I get an opportunity to work with here, we work with exceptional students. So even if I hadn't met them, I knew that if someone had the boldness and confidence to come see me, then they had something up their alley. And, they start telling me about their papers. And truly, Cathy, you've seen those papers. So they they actually came in with 2 stories. Do you girls remember that?
Yeah.
They had 2 stories. So they show it to me and I read and I'm like, all right, okay, there is something here, but I've never written a book in a day. I've never written an article. So I go out and I call Musa, my colleague, who is very good in public speaking, and I say, come, let's listen to these girls. And we listen to them, and Mr. Musa is asking questions and I'm asking questions. And, in the beginning we said, all right, let's try to edit it and then we'll see where we go. But the more I started editing, I realized I am not going to be any use to these girls. I will be like another mentor who thinks they can do something they've never done. And then probably I may be the reason why they never get to publishing. So it so happened, and I would forever love you, Cathy, because it so happened that was the time you were visiting St. Jude's for your many, many projects that you support the school with. And when you came, I actually didn't tell you anything. I didn't tell you anything. You were at me, and you are the one who came to me and said, I met these girls. Because we had already started working together. It was almost many, many months, but we were not going anywhere. And so they had already finished the secondary school at girls, and they had already transitioned to Smith campus. So you met them there, and then you came and told me, and I was like, Cathy, I was going to tell you about these girls. So for me, every time I think about this journey, I know that it was ordained for this journey to get here. It was started by the perfect combo who really, as you say, they never knew the amount of understanding they had in their heads. And then ultimately, we were paired with a brilliant writer and author like yourself, Cathy, who took interest in them. And I think this is why we are sitting where we are sitting today.
Do you know, I remember I was doing a home visit and Theresia was actually one of the students. I think I had 3 or 4. And I remember Theresia sitting, to my right, and she was this timid little, I'm going to say mouse. She barely spoke. But what actually was really pronounced was she actually shared with me that I've written a book. And as we're actually going to visit her mother, I'm asking questions because for me, what's a book? In this case, it was 4 pages. But a story is a story, right? A story is a story. And I was listening, quite intrigued, and what Theresia was sharing. And Theresia, when I look back, it was almost like I was interrogating you, and what are you going to do with this? Yes, you don't have to agree. But my question wasn't really about what is the book about. I was curious, but it was more about, but what do you want this book to actually represent? And that showed me even more of a depth. And then when I actually met, with Irene as well, it was that synchronicity. It was almost like dancing butterflies. They were butterflies that actually had these wings that just kept growing bigger and bigger. And that's then what actually really intrigued me, because it was crystallized moments of I'm standing with two young girls that are actually giants in the world, and they are yet to know exactly how big they are. And so I think one of the things that scared me the most was actually after I met Theresia's mother and her brother and sister. I think the next day she said to me, you were the first person that actually told my mother that I wanted to do public relations and write. And it was like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me? But Vivian, you shared something that I think is really important, that these girls, they're saying it so casually, but what they did in actually having, I'm going to say, the ability to navigate through whatever obstacles that they faced to still actually seek out who they thought would be able to help them. So in searching you out, despite the obstacles and despite fear, because fear can be debilitating, they still actually felt that passionate about their dream and what it ultimately meant that they didn't know what stop meant.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could tell, like Irene was saying, they knew they were not allowed to come into the primary side of things. And they went, was it Miss Merama?
No, it was
Mr. Loasa, or at the time it was Mr. Loasa. And that audacity, because when you are a child at their age, especially in Tanzania, and a female at that, you have heard constantly that you have to be playing it low. Don't push beyond the boundaries. Do not go across the limits. Do not talk too much. That's why maybe you see the mouse scenario with Theresia. It has been a constant reminder on this side of the world where a woman has to abide by the rules and do not expect to break off the shield. So from when they were young, they knew what they had, even though they quite didn't understand it, but had the true confidence to know, wait, I am not breaking any rules. I am not defying any person, but I have to take an extra step to get to where I need to go.
Just even in your journey, there are so many lessons. And I'm not talking about lessons to just students and young people. There are also lessons for adults. Yeah. And they're lessons not just in Tanzania, not just in Africa. They're actually lessons that can actually be shared right across the world. And especially for women, because that playing it small is such a subtle, I'm going to say, unspoken rule that we don't recognize it. So, can I actually ask you to maybe actually share a little bit of why did you write this story?
We wrote this story because, as I said earlier, we were inspired of how people around us, our friends, neighbors at home, how they were questioning about their beauty. So we thought, I remember the first time talking to you, I and Irene, we told you we think the problem is in Tanzania only. And you told us, no, it's not a Tanzanian problem. It's around the world. And we were like, oh my God, so it's a global problem. So what inspired us to write the book is the hunger to feed people with a knowledge that they can still love themselves in no matter what kind of skin color they are in.
Can I ask you, how much do you think of an impact it has, particularly for young girls, and I would say women in general, if you don't have the confidence in actually, I guess, love what you look like? How much of an impact do you think that has on their lives?
I must say that I think it has a very great impact because I've been looking across many social media about the people who must love the way they are, and they try to change themselves, like maybe some bleach themselves, but there are some who do plastic surgery, and the aftermath or the effect is very, very, very bad. So that's why we wrote this book. so that you can be able to question yourself like, the way I am, it's enough. It's enough. And there's no need to change and be the other way around. Yeah.
Do you see color? When I say do you see color, when you look at somebody, do you actually see their skin color?
No. I see you. I don't see color.
What about you, Theresia?
When I look at a person, I see the inner beauty, the confidence, the courage, the love for oneself. Yeah, and the ability to have inner peace. So I don't see a color.
Vivian, when do you think that changes?
Frankly speaking, for example, when I'm growing up, I used to see color. I used to know that I was too dark and by standards of many, not too beautiful. And each time you would want to wish to be much lighter, your complexion to be a little bit lighter. And I think that changes when the self within you has understood that I am more than just what is outside. But also the change begins when you know that everyone is beautiful in their own skin color, in their own body size. Beauty does not come in a prescribed table or manual. Beauty is so versatile and should be celebrated. So I remember thinking that I was too tall to be a woman.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because, when we were young, I don't know your ages these days, but when we were young, people would ask, who will marry you? You're too tall. Because everybody loves a man. And, that has something it does in your inner being. So you're constantly kind of evaluating yourself if I'm good enough and is this good enough? So I'm constantly comparing myself to a friend or to a colleague. But that actually changes at a time when enough has come into my understanding, knowing that not height, not the weight, and not the skin complexion defines what beauty is or what is not.
As I'm listening to you, whilst this book actually has, a surface level story that actually talks to the specific issue of skin color, what it actually is doing is raising awareness of self-love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So girls, once again, I sit and think about the wisdom that you actually have and the level of awareness and your actual, I'm going to say, incredible desire to not actually give up because this actually meant so much. When I think about it, to be quite honestly, this is actually a book that needs to be in every single school. So when we're actually talking about social issues, they are real issues, not something that may have actually happened 500 years ago, 100 years ago. They are issues that young people are actually dealing with today. And whilst the story may actually have the lens and narrative, toward a young girl or a woman, the reality is that it actually provides the foundation of having difficult conversations that everybody is experiencing. Do you understand the magnitude of what you've done?
Yeah.
Can I actually ask one of you to maybe actually pick up a copy of the book, because you do have one there with you, and maybe read a piece from there? It doesn't really matter, but I want you to read it out so that the audience actually gets to hear you actually speaking as the actual authors.
Okay. But let me tell you what I know for sure. You are enough. You are worthy. You are already powerful. You just haven't stepped fully into it yet. Let this story be your spark.
Wow.
And look at the piece that you actually picked up, right? Incredible. Theresia, can I get you to actually read a piece? Just pick any piece.
Nari, you are a black and beautiful lass, and that's what makes you the true queen of Ega Kingdom. These words should have filled Nari's heart with pride, but instead they echoed in her mind as her true destiny slipped away slowly away. This is the story of Nari, a young princess of the Ega Kingdom, whose life was forever changed when her curiosity led down a path that would change her fate.
Beautiful. Do you know, and the piece that you actually just touched on, Theresia, is something that every single human being actually experiences, multiple times, potentially in one day. We have a moment and a choice throughout our life that actually crosses us. We always have a choice. And you actually talk about choices in the book as well. And so, whilst again, I'm going to say to whoever's actually listening to this actual podcast, the reality is that this isn't just a story. This isn't just about young girls actually not necessarily seeing their inner beauty because of the color of their skin. It also actually asks the question of, where does that actual choice actually land for you? When you're actually not confident in yourself, as opposed to when you do have the confidence. And so this book almost has created a curriculum that can actually be encompassed in well-being, in health, in science, in geography. There are so many aspects that actually can be drawn on to actually create or co-create within a school curriculum, no matter what that curriculum is. Can I actually ask you girls, what do you actually want to see this book actually represent? Where do you want this to go?
We want this to be more than a book. We want it to be a voice. We want to see this voice inspiring hundreds of Tanzanians, Africans, the world at large. We want to see people gaining their confidence. We want to see people believing in themselves again and loving the way they are. We want people to believe that they are perfectly painted with God. We want people to love themselves inside and out.
Thank you, Theresia. Irene, what about for you?
On my side, I want this book to reach not only to the elder ones, it has to reach even to the younger ones. Confidence is built from when you're young until you grow. So this book, as everyone walks with this story in their head, they have to walk with confidence to stand in front of anyone. For example, I'm black. I can stand and talk in front of the white people. You're white, you can stand and talk in front of black people. Nobody to see color, but see the inner people, the inner other people, the inner you. Yeah. So it has to create a spark. One feeds, creating a spark to everyone around the world.
For me, what you have actually just shared is exactly the vision. When we are able to allow people to genuinely be the whole of themselves without actually feeling that there is any aspect of them that needs to be adjusted, we then actually create almost this euphoria. We're never second guessing ourselves because of the way that we actually appear or look or sound, for that matter. So when you actually say a voice, it isn't just about what is heard. It is also what we see and what we feel. And I think when I heard you earlier and you're actually talking about, loving yourself inside and out, that actual ability to genuinely be able to look in the mirror and actually say like you would to a friend, I love you. I actually love you, is at the center of this book. And there aren't too many people in the world, and it doesn't matter what skin color they have, they're able to do that. This is also an opportunity for, men, academics, scientists. It really doesn't matter to actually stand up and advocate for you. So I'm going to actually ask whoever hears this, whoever sees this book, not just actually buys the book and read it, but actually become advocates of these two young authors who will be known, renowned for years to come. Their names will actually be echoed long after I'm actually gone. And I suspect long after they've gone. What they've actually created is a legacy. So girls, if you have one message to give to anybody, what would that message be?
You are enough. Be you.
Beautiful. And Vivian, what would you actually say to any young student that has a vision?
We are noticing that the new generation, this current generation and the generation that is coming behind us has so much to offer. But it is constantly reminded that you're too young. You don't know, you're 19. And you have no idea how this is done. And all of that could be true. But I'm asking every young person, if your heart is filled with something, then do not allow yourself to finish being young without exploring what that was. Being young is the perfect space to make all kinds of mistakes. So if it ends up a mistake, well, you're young. But then what if it ends up being like Theresia and Irene and it becomes a book that inspires all of us? This is a book that is not just read by young students. I think this is a book that should be read by corporates, especially men in the corporations, to allow us to celebrate one another, but also to allow us to look down, to step back and move out of our corporate chairs and go out and find the Theresias and Irene like Catherine has done. You could have done a lot of things, Cathy, in these almost 2-3 years. You could have done a lot of things with the time you have spent with these young people. I can remember every Zoom call you have made. And you have been chasing me, you have chased the girls, you have chased Mr. Musa. And I think when this book comes into the hands of the corporates, I do pray that all of us try and go and find our own Theresias and Irenes, because there is so much in them. So thank you so much for being my idol.
Oh, I actually love that you share that, Vivian, because it's my experience as well. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people actually say the younger generation are so entitled. They need to actually experience what we experienced. I did it the hard way. They should too. In that moment, there's two things that runs through my head. One is, well, what's the purpose of us learning a lesson? Isn't that to actually share that knowledge? And then the second thing is, when did age depict whether you had wisdom and awareness? I can name some very high-profile people at the moment that have got zero awareness. Right? So let's not actually create barriers, because barriers are already there. Let's actually look for opportunities where we create space and we listen to differences, but more importantly, we recognize that our actual responsibility and obligations on this planet are to actually lift others. Lift others, not for us to continue to rise. If there's one thing that I learned, and you know what, I kept going back to my very first visit to Tanzania. I came to Tanzania because my 16-year-old daughter sat at the dining table, when Ebola broke out, and said, I'm going to go to Africa and volunteer.
Wow.
My husband went, no, you're not. And I said to him, hang on a minute. if she dares to actually have that as a dream, isn't it up to us to actually help her? I knew nothing about Africa. And I can tell you, after I had supported her journey and she'd actually raised all of her own money, to actually fund the entire trip, and she was there for 3 months. The first thing when she was at the airport, I still remember very vividly, she put her hand up on the glass panel on the other side of customs as she was going to the aeroplane, and I put my hand up. And so we're standing like this. And in that moment, my heart sank because I thought, oh my God, what have I done? But she didn't have fear. I had the fear, right? And that's what happens as adults. We impose our own emotions and experiences on others. And I'm so glad, Theresia and Irene, that you did not allow that to influence you.
Absolutely.
Right? That courage that you showed is absolutely enormous. And if you can actually just speak to others just about that, then you've already actually shifted that younger generation one step further to where they're actually meant to be, right? That is what I want people to understand. These two young girls had a vision, a pathway that they could not do. And that's what life is about. And very few people actually get to experience that. But you have begun that journey by saying, I actually know that this is important and I want to actually influence and impact in a positive way. I can't not do this anymore. So find the Miss Vivians of the world. Go knocking on doors. And the first answer might be no, but it's not no to you. It's no because they may not be able to. So keep knocking is my actual message to you. Keep knocking. Now, I know that Theresia and Irene have only just finished their final exams, and I know that the world is actually their oyster. But one of the things that they too have actually, I guess, looked to bring into their actual next stage of journey are other opportunities. So as you actually become the reader of their book, reach out to them. Explore what opportunities you might actually have for them to perhaps mentor you, for them to perhaps collaborate with you. Nothing stops any of you who are listening to this to reach out to these young girls. They've already created the roadmap. They actually want you to create yours. So I'm going to wrap up here, but if you have anything to share to anybody that's going to listen to this, if you have a message, if you want to share a little bit more about the book, please take this opportunity now to do that. Irene?
Everyone will be reaching out for a book. As you read our book, at first, don't be like Nari. But at last, as you keep on reading, be like Nari. Believe in yourself. Know that you're enough. That's what I'd like to share. And make sure that you do not listen to the good lie that other people tell you. Just know that you are enough.
It's a really valid point because other people's stories are not your story.
Yeah. Sure.
Theresia, what about you?
You know, the funny thing about this book is Nari's behavior. So Nari's mother thinks Nari is very beautiful, but whenever she tells her that Nari, you are beautiful, you are black and beautiful, and that's what a Edgar Kingdom needs as a queen. So Nari is bothered with these words. The word struggles in her heart, and she feels like they don't really belong to her. So to whoever is going to read this book, stop questioning whether you look beautiful or not, because you are already beautiful. As I said earlier, you are already perfectly painted with God. So to whoever is going to read this book, thank you so much for believing in us. Thank you so much for making a change to our lives, because as you read the book, you will be changing other people's lives too. And that's all. Thank you so much. And as you read the book, don't forget to share it with your friends.
Yes, absolutely. Share it with your friends. Vivian, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, just saying thank you. Thank you to the School of St. Jude that provides thousands young, high-achieving, brilliant students who come from underprivileged background a chance to come and get quality education and meet people like yourselves, Cathy. We never would have met you if it was not for the School of St. Jude. And I just want to say thank you to this institution. And then a massive thank you to you and your colleagues back in Australia. I know you're working with people in the US. You're constantly looking for experts to give the best of the best to these kids. And I know that is not small. So I just want to say thank you so much, Cathy. I love you. I love you as a colleague. I love you as a human being. And you're a true definition that beauty comes in every color. Every color. And I've just seen so much beauty in you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I can actually say that I'm very grateful that I've been able to share this journey, but more importantly, that you have actually taught me so many more lessons. Sometimes we just look at what's in front of us, but the reality is that no matter what it is that we do, we're actually leaving a breath, a footprint, a footstep, a pathway for somebody else. And so no matter what choices we actually make in life, know that they're not just a choice in that moment. They're actually a choice that actually lives well beyond, anything that we potentially can see or feel. And you girls have actually continuously reminded me of that. It is, I think, a practice that I live with, that I think about what is the impact 7 generations ahead of the decisions I make today. But you have created it in another way with so many layers. And I'm actually really grateful to you for allowing me to actually be part of this journey. So I'm going to actually end it here. But for everybody, once again, Uzuri is actually the first book that you'll actually see from these young authors. But it's not just a book. It is actually a roadmap to life, to education, and to your career. So no matter what stage or where you are actually at, this is actually a book that you need to not just read for yourselves, but to share and to actually look at what are the actual messages that lie within it. So thank you, Theresia, Irene, and Vivian for actually joining me on this.
Thank you. Thank you, Cathy, for having us.
This was Let's Pay Attention, Hacking Consciousness. Stay awake, lead with heart, be bold enough to listen deeply. I'm Cathy Dimarchos. Until next time, be the impact.